Santa Ana. Indians named it Santana, the devil wind. When it blows, plants wither, trees and brush become crackling dry, atmosphere grows tense, oppressive. People tire easily, argue more. Even the suicide rate rises during the months of the Santa Ana. Warm, dry. This climate plays an important part in attracting over 3,000 people a month to the city of Los Angeles to become permanent residents. To settle into hotels, apartments, homes along the coast, inland throughout the central residential sections to the far reaches of the valley areas. And some move up to the scenic, secluded hill areas, where lush California vegetation softens the ridges and valleys for miles in every direction, and breezes blow clean through native growth. And increasingly strong during the late fall months of the Santa Ana, and dangerously dry when there has been no rain. It is during this unstable period that firemen most fear the potential. The potential of 134 square miles of thick, dry chaparral and oak, all within the city boundaries of Los Angeles, classed by experts as the fastest burning ground cover in the Western Hemisphere. And nestled in that cover, one of the greatest concentrations of high-value homes in America, a serious problem in fire protection under even the best of conditions.
No more parties in LA, please baby, no more parties in LA, no more parties in LA, please baby, no more parties in LA, no more Los Angeles.
Explain why you fled Los Angeles 2 years ago.
I think everyone needs to understand, and I wish the New York Times would have let me make this point, that this is going to get worse. I can see that today just as clearly as I could see how a hotter and drier and more fiery Los Angeles was getting. I mean, I think in the future, if we don't change course very quickly, and maybe it's even too late to avoid some of these much more catastrophic impacts, but I'm fully expecting heat waves to start appearing where 100,000 people die, and then maybe 1 million people die, and then maybe more after that as things get hotter and hotter, because there's no upper limit, right? Like, we keep burning these fossil fuels, fossil fuel industry keeps lying, the planet just keeps getting hotter, these impacts just keep getting worse. It's not a new normal. A lot of climate messaging centers around this idea that it's a new normal. It's a staircase to a hotter, more hellish Earth.
To live and die in LA, California. What you say about Los Angeles? Still the only place for me that never rains and suns. To live and die in LA.
Nearly 1,000 incarcerated firefighters have been deployed to help contain the fires, typically earning as little as between $5.80 to $10.24 a day. Popular Twitch streamer Hassan Piker spoke to several incarcerated firefighters working in the area.
The cops treat us like but here, we get better treatment, right? They talk to us like humans. They talk to us like humans. We got a job. We're underpaid, but we got a job. Yeah.
But everybody wanna see to live and die in LA. It's the place to be.
To live and die in LA.
Breathe it to know it. But everybody wanna see it.
Oh my God.
Zaire Calvin and his family have called Altadena home for 3 generations.
Just wonder if anything's left. The rocking chair for the baby. I literally just built all of this.
Calvin, a high school football coach, has lived on this block his whole life. He has seen a number of wildfires flare up in the foothills, but never in his 47 years had he seen anything like the firestorm that swept off the mountain this past Tuesday.
Altadena gone, bro. It's over.
His son Jameer told us the winds kicked up and power went down across the neighborhood.
It was like a hurricane, just fire, no water, but like 80 miles an hour plus. It felt surreal.
Was the fire like racing down the hill at that point?
Yeah.
That's what's scary about this. It just was shooting.
Like a blowtorch?
Like a blowtorch. It was literally just shooting off of the mountain. It felt like you're being attacked by a storm.
Yeah.
As the fire bore down on them, Zaire put his wife, baby, and mother into the car. Jameer grabbed what he could.
At least 5 people have lost their lives in the Eaton fire, and among them was a grandfather, Rodney Nickerson.
KCAL News reporter Jasmine Beal is live in Altadena to tell us more about him. Jazz.
And Amy, I'm standing in front of his house right now, a home that he bought back in 1968 with just $5. He lived here. His daughters and grandchildren, grew up in this home, and his daughter, Kimiko Nickerson, just arrived. Kimiko, I know this is so hard. Tears are in your eyes. You were telling me about the history, the legacy that Rodney Kent Nickerson leaves behind.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about your dad, and obviously we'll go back to Tuesday night when this firestorm hit.
He's been living here since 1968. This is the house that I came home to as a child, and I've been here my whole life. I don't know anywhere else other than here. Myself and my brother and my son Chase and his other grandchildren, this is where we've been our whole life. And my son tried to get him to leave, and my neighbors and myself, and he said he'll be fine. I'll be here when you guys come back. And he said his house would be here. His house is here, and he was here too. He was in his bed when I found him.
And we are remembering the lives lost to these deadly wildfires. One of them we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Delise Curry. She was known as Mama D, an Altadena resident who died when the Eaton fire tore through her neighborhood and burned down her home. Mama D was part of old black Hollywood in the 1950s and worked as an actor in Los Angeles for decades, appearing in films including The 10 Commandments and The Blues Brothers. Mama D was 95 years old. And joining us now is her granddaughter, Delise Kelly, who shares a name with her and so many good memories, I'm sure. Delise, thank you for joining Top Story tonight. First of all, how is your family holding up?
Our souls are broken. We are not holding up well. We are distraught. And like you said earlier, it is so hard to look at all of this devastation and wonder what her last moments were. She didn't deserve this.
To live and die in LA. To live and die in LA.
Context of White Supremacy. January 15, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s so-called birthday today, even though the holiday is officially recognized by white people. Finally, angst of Arizona and many others, but that is on Monday, the 20th, but his actual birthday is the 15th of January. Not that we're celebrating birthdays, so-called. Condolences. There were so many. They've had at least 25 reported fatalities in the wildfires in California. That have been reported at this point. That number, I'm sure, will rise. The fires have not even been extinguished at this point, so I'm sure that number will rise. But we heard in our reports Rodney Nickerson, 82-year-old black male, Delise Mama D, nicknamed Curry, who coincidentally, or I guess no coincidence, she was in the play. They said she was a part of old black Hollywood, in quotes. They said so-called Mama D, Miss Curry, 95 years old. One of the movies that she was in, The Blacks, in the 1960s, Maya Angelou was in the same play at the same time. time. I'd never even heard of this work till we started reading Dr. Angelo's fourth autobiography recently, and I saw newspaper reports about it. But Mama D was in this play as well. Black Hollywood, but she died at 95. Jameer Calvin, who played football at Washington State. Now that's on the other side of the Evergreen State from me. Like, I'm in Seattle, Washington State. That's like Pullman, way far yonder, close to like Montana and such. But Jameer Calvin, he played football there, and his aunt Evelyn passed away in the wildfires, and they lost their house. You heard them in the audio. Mr. Calvin's father as well, football coach. They were talking about losing all their trophies and property and all the rest of it. Condolences to all the folks who have lost lives, non-white people, property, schools. Air Quality had to evacuate all of the trauma associated with the wildfires in California. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Wednesday, January 15, 2025. So I have been told. This is just special review and really reflective of what I said in ways that I could not have imagined when I said it, but proving my statement to be true, that going to California was a transformative experience for Gus T. Renegade. We probably would not have this broadcast. I probably wouldn't be doing all this if I had not just been in some of the very areas that have been evacuated, on fire, burned to ashes. If I had not literally just been in some of these very locations, that very different impact on seeing some of these folks, and some of it looking very familiar. Particularly, Gus T spent about a good 7 to 8 months whining and grousing. I want to go to California and research Jonestown and California. I didn't say LA. That was not the plan. It was just go to California. Let's go to San Francisco, which is kind of indicative of a point that will come up later. But the plan was Bay Area, San Francisco. Here we come. That was the plan. It only expanded to include Los Angeles because the film festival, soundtrack to coup d'etat, white people around the world killed Patrice Lumumba and lied about having done so. And then made a great movie about it, wrote a lot of great books about it, and then made a great film about it. Or another great film, I should say, because they already had documentaries and Hollywood films about this too. So they made another great film about it. And I wanted to go to LA for the film festival, meet the filmmaker, which I did, and see all these other great films, and went to Malibu. Assessment of life as a colored boy in LA. All of the above, but all of that was predicated on Jonestown counter. And hey, Jim Jones had a church in Los Angeles. I'd said the whole time, like, that was also part of the, hey, this is not, we're not off mission. This is not mission creep, as they say in militaryese. Jim Jones was here. There is Jonestown research aplenty in Los Angeles. So I'm still on mission, and I did get Jonestown research before, or I will say while I was in Los Angeles and afterwards. In fact, the creator lined up so many ways. I mean, one, I spent almost a whole year whining about going to California. I go to California. I go to some of the very spots that catch on fire. I come back. I said it's in the archives. If I had to go back to LA because I wouldn't want to go, I go to UCLA. UCLA was on alert for evacuation this past weekend. They don't even have classes at UCLA this week. It's all virtual. I got research on Jonestown from UCLA at the beginning of last week. It's dated. If I had waited for that request, I don't think I would have got it, because I think the campus is closed this week. Man. And I was at UCLA. I would not have had anything to say, I don't think, or I would have had a substantially different assessment of all of this had I not just been in Los Angeles. I mean, and even, hey, there was so much delaying my original thought process. I'll be in San Francisco only in May, June, summertime, July, August maybe. And then it was, whoa, wait a minute, November 18th, be there for the recognition. Great choice, but it easily could have been manipulated some way, as opposed to being there early. If that film festival, as opposed to being at the end of October, had been at the end of December, it easily could have been a scenario where, okay, do it the other way. Go to San Francisco first. Stay there for 30 days, approximately. Then go to LA for the film festival. And I could have been there. And I said the whole time in LA, I said, man, we weren't broadcasting, but I said, I let people know on the air after I got to San Francisco, man, I had nightmares the whole time I was there, getting stuck in Los Angeles, selling oranges in front of Intuit Dome. See if I can hitchhike, get out of LA, get back to Seattle, or get back to civilization, something. But I said that the whole time. I had nightmares that I would get stuck down here and just, it's the worst. To live and die in LA, indeed. I said that a bunch before. I've been on my Tupac, like this is a totally different way of being on my Tupac. Live and die in LA. Anywho, so much to discuss with regards to what is happening with the wildfires, and what does all this reveal about the system of white supremacy, racism? There is so much, and I can kind of fuse this together with, because I said on air, really there should have been 3 different programs with regards to the LA trip. Should have been just the LA component. Wow, what is the LA experience for Gus T? So I can do that today. Same thing for the Bay Area, and then the film festival. Now that could have been with LA, but there really could have been a separate, film festival. But I said, that's a lot of television focus, and anyway, the LA focus, we can fuse that in today, and that will help with the counter-racist analysis of how I'm processing all that has been shown in the last week or so since these wildfires, and they're multiple, in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. Just a little bit of what we heard in the introduction. We started with a documentary from the Los Angeles Fire Department from 1962, over 60 years old. It just popped up on YouTube when I was watching news clips about what was happening with the fire and just, trying to get more details. It popped up automatically, and I'm watching this, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if this was like a spoof or something, and I looked, it's like, oh, this is from the fire department. Same people, they're doing updates on what's happening every day and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't even a recent upload. They had uploaded this years ago, and it's 1962. But they're going into these winds and how these winds have been there for, forever. They've had this wind pattern that, this is what's going to happen in Southern California. They're going to have these high, dry winds, and if it's been dry and that vegetation is parched, and you get the right conditions, spark or whatever it is, people are sloppy with their campfire, fireworks, whatever, ooh-wee, it could be a problem, an explosive problem. This has been, they even got the name of that documentary was Dangerous, or it was designed for danger. I think that's it, like something like, what? They know, and even they said the non-white people, indigenous folks, they named it Santana. That was for Satan's winds, devil's winds. Like, wow. So this is just a natural part of geography of the region. Wow, like that should be mandatory. Everybody, if you're going to live here, own property here, certainly if you're a native of this region, you should know that. Real informed about that. Like, oh, it's that time of year. We got to know and make sure that we build things with that in mind, and, you know, take all the proper precautions. Because, I mean, hey, Satan's winds. I mean, hey, that just happens. And it might be worse because of climate conditions. If they have changed, they talked about if it's been particularly dry. Well, hey, we're drought prone now. We know it ain't rain. So we got that. And then we got water problems and all the rest of it. Oh, man. Is the temperature warmer? Oh, man. It might be even worse. Season for all these devilish winds, it might be even longer. All of that we might have to consider and be super informed about that if we're going to be here. I'm not saying people weren't. I don't live there, obviously. I didn't know that. They got the report. They start detailing some of the folks, or even before we get to some of the people who passed away, we were talking about the wildfires on the compensatory call-in. Octavius in New York dialed in, and he said that part where Peter Kalmus, white man, he was on Democracy Now! At the end of last week, and he did a report talking about why he fled Los Angeles, because he said this temperature and climate issue is going to get worse. I'm getting out of here. And he said he watched all this, like, yep, that's about what I thought it would be, and it's just going to keep getting worse with these sort of climate disasters. But Octavius in New York said, I wish he had repeated the part that he said about the New York Times. They wouldn't allow him to say this, or they edited that part out of the piece. And the part he was talking about was he said he thinks these events are going to get worse, where it gets to the point where you have 10,000, 100,000 people die in these climate disasters in Southern California, that just becomes the new normal. And he said that they, didn't let him put that in, but he said, I'm just looking at the evidence. The temperature's going up, and we're not really doing a whole lot to change these problems. So, yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. Eep. Let's see. Then we started hearing some of the folks who passed away. I started being taken aback. They said that they don't have a final number on how many fatalities there will be with regards to these wildfires for some time. Understandable. The fires are still raging. At this point, the number is at 25, according to the most recent report that I've seen. 25 fatalities. I started being struck pretty immediately once they started showing pictures of who some of these people are who passed away in Palisades and the Eaton fire and some of these other locations around Los Angeles. It was a number of black people. Particularly, it was a number of older black people. You heard in the reports, Rodney Nickerson, 82. Mama D, Delise Curry, 95. That's what I was seeing. A lot of black people who were older. They'd been in these houses for decades. Race soldiers, this is the only place that we're going to allow you to get a house. And even, I think, some of these parts of Altadena, where they said Altadena, unless I've been misinformed, 18% black. They have a so-called historically black neighborhood. I think some parts of Altadena are unincorporated. And I've even heard some of these black people where they said the insurance company canceled their policy because they live in area that is prone to wildfires. And I think California, they have a lot of people, increasingly so, who live in regions that are either prone to wildfire, prone to rising sea level. For some people, they get the double whammy, both. And I think some of the folks in Malibu, that might, where I was in Malibu, in fact, might be them, the double whammy. You got a problem that looks like it's going to be with rising sea level and wildfires. How is that? Anyway, all of that in Altadena and some of these other areas where these fires are happening, but they do have, I was thinking, because they've had lots of images of like Mel Gibson and a lot of these white people that have these $1 million homes and such that are out in Malibu and places that I saw up in the hills and such that are super expensive and are not owned by dark people, but they also in those hills have black people who have houses. Quite a few, apparently. They said 18% in Altadena and some whole black neighborhoods that are up in there. Like, dang. They were reporting that so-called gentrification, racial dislocation, that was a problem, a major threat before. It's going to be extraordinary now. And keep in mind, Olympics 2028. They boot black people out for that anyway. Now, hey, choice property, we got to rebuild anyway. Maybe some hotels and swanky locations for the Olympic athletes. Encourage old mobiles to come and do some flips in LA in 2028. Hey, you had a good run up here in Altadena, but, you know, Olympics to the future. No more niggers. Pack your belongings, niggers. Beat it. Racial dislo. We got Olympics to prepare for. Beat it. I could easily see that happening. And throughout Los Angeles, call it price gouging. I didn't even include that because they said, hey, oh my goodness, we got all these folks displaced, structures ruined, and whole schools and all the rest of it. Temperature and the rent is a rising, and it's not like they got cheap rent in Los Angeles. For people who don't know, please, it's kind of expensive. California in general, the real estate is kind of expensive. This just going to make it worse. I already talked about that price gouging the rent. Last week the rent was $2,000. This week the rent is $10,000. They even said that some of the landlords, they were taking bids, like, give me your best offer and I'll let you know. Dang, our house burned down. Well, I got other offers to listen to. We'll talk. Like, dang. We didn't even get to the looting. We didn't even get to the National Guard. Now, I visited Los Angeles. It was peacetime. There was no wildfire. Well, retract. It was not peacetime. It was Carmageddon, according to the Los Angeles Times. When I was there, and the day I left, they burned a bus. So it was not peacetime. It was the World Series and Halloween and the presidential election, in that order. Like, that was kind of the least troublesome. But I mean, they have been shooting at Trump too. Like, woof, man. During that, I felt Los Angeles, my major takeaway, this place is majorly unhealthy, unsafe, dangerous. To live and die in Los Angeles. That was my takeaway. There wasn't a major weather catastrophe when I was there. The weather was pretty nice. In fact, it was, 80s, 70s for most of the time that I was there. I think the last 2 days it got a little bit cooler. It was in like the mid-upper 60s, but still, I mean, it was sunny, of course. It never rained. But it was sunny the whole time that I was there. There was nothing to complain about. There were no wildfires in the immediate area. So, even then, I said, wow, this place is so unsafe, unhealthy, dangerous. And I said that before I even got off the plane. I noted immediately the 2 red flags, and I said, we were descending into LAX, and I looked, and I guess it really was stark for me coming out of Seattle. And I'd said before, I'd been to LA before. This was not, a new experience. I'd been here before. I'd lived in California. But I had not flown into LA before. Flying, descending into all of that filth that they call smog, poison. Oh my God, that, and whoa, this here place is a desert. Like, I did not in my brain computer, even I had seen wildfires before and seen pictures of LA and video and blah, 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 all that. I've been there before. I did not conceptualize Los Angeles as a desert until flying in and seeing how brown and charred everything was. It was just, whoa, that and the poison, aka smog, that we're flying through. Like, what? I just remember being stunned, like looking out the window, like, what? I said, we're going into Vegas. I've said it on air. I told you, I said, we are going into Vegas. Like, we are in the desert and all this smog. Like, what? I'm only here 8 days. Like, I was saying that before I even got off the plane. Like, oh my God, you gotta breathe this in. Like, ugh. My lungs are important. Aren't your lungs important? Do you value your lungs? I don't know. We got smokers, Marlboro employees here. I don't know. I value my lungs. Breathing is fuller, but what is better than breathing? That's what I said about Los Angeles immediately, and for the duration of the time that I was there. Now, by the end of the trip, now I was still, very concerned about the breathing component and all the poison in the air. But with the looting, and even related because they burned that bus, you got more synthetics in the air, see. But it was the safety, like, oh my God, these hooligans are fitting to riot, which they did. Oh my God, they're going to make me miss my flight. I got to get to the airport. Oof. Oof. I missed out. There were constructive activities that I wanted to engage in that I missed out on. What was one of them? The Hamer Museum. This is in West Los Angeles, 10899 Wilshire Boulevard, LA proper, 90024. I never even heard of it. Hammer Museum. Sorry, I said Hamer. Hammer Museum. I'd never even heard of it, but I was on this side of town when I went to UCLA. I said, whoa, the Breathe exhibit, wow, they're talking about pollution in LA. I've been complaining about that the whole time I'm here. I'm going to go. If they had not rioted in Los Angeles, or even if the World Series had not been concurrent with my visit, I would have seen this exhibit, and I would have included that in my commentary today about what they had at the Hammer. But the hooliganism, we got the riot, the ball team, Lakers finna win, woo! They say the Lakers is the Dodgers. Dodgers finna win. The Lakers finna win, woo! Never mind, whatever. Well, we got to burn the bus down to celebrate. Because of that, I said, y'all not gonna make me miss my plane out of here. I am not getting stuck in LA. I will have to miss the museum and anything else. The number one goal, we are getting out of LA. Escape. I told you I did the practice run for what they did now. And it was kind of the same because they did burn a bus. But the Hammer Museum, in fact, in the exhibit, breathe toward climate and social justice could be counter-racism. Part of Getty's region-wide initiative, PST Art and Science Collide. The Hammer presents Breathe Toward Climate and Social Justice, organized by guest co-curators Glenn Kino and Mika Yoshitaki. The exhibition considers environmental art practices that address the climate crisis and anthropogenic disasters and their inescapable intersection with the issues of equity and social justice, white supremacy, racism. Breathe features works by more than 20 artists, including works by Mel Chin, Ron Finley, Kanupa Hanska Luger, Garnett Pewitt, Lance Tuazan. It's commissioned specifically for this exhibition, and they deal with COVID. That is a respiratory issue. And they have more details about it, but I was going to go see this. I missed out. I'm so disgruntled. And then, especially when I remember this, seeing everything happening in LA right now, and I looked, the Hammer Museum is currently closed due to the ongoing nearby fires. We will reopen on Saturday. To live and die in LA, indeed. I told you this side of town was on alert, man. UCLA, UCLA is not on alert. UCLA is closed and virtual this week. Ghost town, that's what they said about UCLA. I don't know about USC. They might still have class. I saw they had USC was playing basketball games this weekend. Like, what? Like, wacky. Anyway, I have to go back to grab Dr. Cambon, because at so many points while I was in Los Angeles, and again, not under disaster circumstances, my assessment was, wow, it is very difficult to access grocery stores. They have lots of information and maps about the extreme poverty in Los Angeles, in a city next to extreme wealth, right next door to Beverly Hills, separate cities, separate police department and all that. But they talk about it, and I mean, you see it on display. I mean, it is staggering. And again, for me, I am accustomed to being in Seattle, 206. Everywhere that I have lived in Seattle, there has been a grocery store most of the time within, I would say, a half mile of my residence, at least one. Even in some of the times where I've lived in, like, the boonies, a little bit outside of Seattle proper, even then, there has been a grocery store walking distance from my residence, a half a mile. That is the case right now. There's a grocery store, 2 different grocery stores across the street. There are more grocery stores than I could count. There are at least 5 within a 1-mile radius of my residence right now. At least 5 different grocery stores. Quality grocery stores, not hot dogs. That is not Los Angeles at all. Not even close. Hot dog, you replace grocery store with hot dog stand. That's what, ubiquitous. Hot dog stands, food trucks with hot dogs frequently, and McDonald's all over the place. Like, unhealthy. So you got the bad air, bad food. You're in an environment where they have wildfires on a regular basis. They have earthquakes in California. Yes, I lived in California when they had an earthquake. I just told you it is super expensive. And even because of all of this, the earthquakes and the wildfires and the drought and the poor air quality, that makes it even more expensive. Plus, there's so many people there. It's like 10 million people, greater metro area. It is so expensive and then dangerous and all the rest of it. That just piles on to how unhealthy and unsafe and dangerous the whole area is. Even in fact, I even had to remember in seeing all of this, and because they have so much extreme poverty and tent cities and all the rest of it, I was like, oh yeah, the grim sleeper. Oh yeah, Lonnie Franklin went on for all those years terrorizing and killing black females. Like, oh yeah, I could see how that could happen here easily. They got whole goofy documentary series that just came out. I'm not promoting to watch or anything. It's just, it came to my brain computer about Lonnie Franklin, because that is true, and that's Los Angeles, and that's the worthlessness of black life in the system of white supremacy, racism in total, and then specifically in Los Angeles, where who even cares? We got all these people here and all of these dark people, because there's a lot more dark people in LA than Seattle. We don't want none of them here, so I mean, make sure they don't encroach on Beverly Hills. So I mean, who cares? Lonnie Frank, you can get some more of these folks. That'd be great, Lonnie. And that's why he was able to go on for so long. They got that in all the documentaries, but they got whole documentary series. Serial Killer Capital, Los Angeles. It didn't even say the whole state of California, which would have been applicable, because then they could have got Jim Jones in, right? That's Northern California. And the Zodiac Killer, that's Northern California. And the Trail Side Strangler, that's San Francisco. Like, the San Francisco is a whole entity to itself, but they could have got, you know, everybody in. Could have been inclusive. That's not what they did. It's Serial Killer Capital, Los Angeles. Just Los Angeles. Whoopee for LA. And again, I'm not surprised. All of these people, all of this poverty, all of these non-white, when the non-white numbers of non-white people goes up, it generally becomes a more dangerous environment, generally speaking. You can even look, the cities that lead top murders, you can generally look. It's not going to be places that are what they call homogenous. It's going to be places that generally have more dark people. Higher number of dark people, more dangerous. I don't think most non-white people, I don't think we commonly think of Los Angeles as dangerous and unhealthy and unsafe. Just on the air quality of life, you could forget everything. You could toss everything else. I was talking to a black male in Los Angeles, and I was giving my concerns, like, man, I don't know, this place is kind of unsafe, unhealthy, and I was giving my list of reasons. By the time I got to 10 or 15 on the list, I just said, oh yeah, I forgot, pour some out for Rodney King and the LAPD. And he laughed and he said, oh yeah, that is right, the LAPD, and they terrorizing the black people. That is a good point. But that was just kind of a throwaway, like, you know, after we get through these other 20 things, I mean, who cares? Like, but I mean, yeah, that Rodney King, yes. LAPD too. Mark Furman, yes. Being able to recognize danger. For Dr. Kamal Kanban, not with us anymore in the physical form, but did he not talk to us about this? Being able to, whether it's danger, hey, they called this here region, what they say, the dark people named it the Satan's Winds? Huh. I'm going to have to think about that. We're going to have a spectacular safety package if we're going to live, what they say this place, Satan's Winds, Santa Ana, man, we're going to have a spectacular counter-racist safety package, and even including now, when they deploy the National Guard, maybe they allow us access to our neighborhood, maybe they don't. Maybe they say we're looters and not homeowners, maybe they don't. We got to have a code for that too. Dr. Kanban told us, have your self-preservation button turned on. Seeing all of this, the conflagration and what have you, burning down a historically black neighborhood, and just remembering, like I said, it was remembering my thoughts about LA is so unsafe and dangerous, I'd say especially for black people, unhealthy. I don't think we think about it that way, and I think that is directly connected to because our self-preservation button is turned off. Dr. Kanban.
The longer we are here, the more contaminated and the more toxic we become. Now, what is the nature of the toxicity and the nature of the contamination? The basic contamination comes from concepts that we are getting.
Dr. Cambon said, adjust to the environment or we die. Grandcestor, not forgotten. But that would be paying attention to the environment. And I mean, as a victim of white supremacy, when Neely Fuller Jr., he's talked about, hey, as a victim of white supremacy, you got to be on guard. The metaphor he used on this broadcast, he said you almost have to be like a squirrel trying to go across the superhighway, just head on a swivel, looking, what's going, what, trying to keep, that's kind of the way you would have to be. And being particularly on guard as you move around this big planet. Now, places are everywhere is dangerous. There is no sanctuary. They got a book, right? Without sanctuary, with the picture of black people being lynched on it. That's true. There is no place to hide. I've had to correct people. They said, Gus T, I've heard you out there bragging about Seattle and yum yum and all that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I always have said Seattle, best plantation. I don't even say best city. Best plantation. And I certainly know my place on the plantation. That said, you certainly want to recognize now the danger may have increased. You could be raped on any plantation. You could be killed on any plantation, but whoa, this is a substantially more dangerous environment. One, it might just be, whoa, I can't breathe here. What? They got all this poison in the air? That alone. And then, whoa, they got wildfires here on a regular basis. Whoa, they got earthquakes here. Whoa, they got droughts here. Is Mark Furman still here? Like, man, yes, all of the plantations are dangerous. Some locations, for a variety of reasons, are more dangerous than others. Los Angeles is one of those. Dare I say, California in general may be one of those. And again, this is Dr. William Shockley territory. Jonestown, that is why I came here. Here being California, that's why I went to do the visit. Jonestown. The nexus is California. Not where it started, Indiana, but the nexus of where all this came together, California. Anyway, and in fact, I can't even forget. Sometimes it'll be something really obscure that will highlight, wow, now there's something peculiar about this environment. Wherever you're listening in the known universe, do they have payphones where you live? You can let us know. You can, if you're listening to the archives, you dial in to participate at any point, even archives down the future when you dial in. Do they have payphones in your environment? Last time you've seen a payphone. They don't have payphones in Seattle. I don't remember the last time I'd seen a payphone here or anywhere else, frankly. I've traveled. I've been to D.C. and Florida, Virginia, other spots in recent years. I don't remember seeing a payphone there either. I don't remember seeing payphones at the airport either, to be truthful. But Los Angeles, they have payphones. And I said plural, payphones. This wasn't even like a one-off, oh, wow, look at that, take a picture. They got, payphone left over from like 1972. No. They have payphones throughout the City of Angels. I took pictures the first time. Like, I was so mystified by this, I took pictures because I thought it was a relic or almost like a fossil or something of a dinosaur. But after I had been there about 4 or 5 days and I saw that payphones are ubiquitous throughout Los Angeles, then I had to reconsider, like, this seems like a deliberate thing that they, have payphones for a reason. So I'm going over, like, why do they have payphones in Los Angeles? Then I had to pair this. Now I'm watching the news about the fires, and on one of the news reports they said that they were talking to people, some of whom, a significant portion in the LA area, they still have antennas on their television. That's how they're getting the broadcast. My jaw hit the ground. Now, I am a broke black dude. I do not have all the newfangled technology and big 80-foot television mounted on the wall or anything like that, but I mean, I do not have antennas on the screen. I mean, I didn't even know that was possible. Like, what? And they said, like, a significant number of people still have antennas on the TV. I said extreme poverty. Okay? But the payphones, the more I experienced and processed and got to it, and I said, okay, I think because LA is so dangerous and unsafe and unhealthy, they have the payphones. They know they have a lot of people who are desperate, don't have technology, all that, so it's there for them. And then for the general population, it's so dangerous, you are likely to be mugged, or, dare I say, a situation like now. Interruption in service and that sort of thing. At least we have the cell phones where you could get a line now. Now, even once I thought about it, I said, man, that is such a relic of the past that it's like, I mean, most people I know, they wouldn't even have their own phone number memorized, much less anybody else's number memorized that they could call. That's a significant chunk of the population. Then once you move them out, it's going to be a lot of people. Do you have a quarter? We move them out. Then anybody that you would like to call, now what's the chances that they are going to have a local Los Angeles number? That means you will need lots of quarters. The more I thought about it, I was like, well, even still, at least you can call 911, which would probably be helpful in Los Angeles, even at a time like now. That would be helpful because I've been mugged or beaten or raped, or they thought I was a looter and they took my phone, or it got shot or broken and I need help. You could at least get to the phone, and it came together in my mind pretty quick, like after I was there. And plus, after I saw so many of them, I was like, wow, they must see a need to have payphones in the city. And I do too, now, knowing what I do about LA. But do they have payphones? So we'll see. For worldwide, do they have payphones where you live? When was the last time you saw a payphone in public? And it can't just be they have one payphone. I said plural, so they got to have like at least 5. Like I said, if they made it a scavenger hunt, if they said we're going to plop you down at LAX, we'll give everybody a car or Uber or whatever, and we'll give you an hour to find a payphone. We got this in the bag. Like, ain't no hurry, ain't no. The only worry would be, have they rioted, National Guard is out or something like that, that's going to make it difficult traffic-wise for us to get there. But other than that, we got this in the bag. Matter of fact, they can even say, you got to get 2 phones. No problem. 2 payphones. No problem. We got this in the bag. We can stop and get vegan treats along the way. We can stop and get some of those Santa Monica vegan gummy bears, and we got this. No problem. I even got pictures of some of the phones, so I got exact GPS coordinates and everything. Like, we got this in the bag. Anyway, let's see. I'm even watching all of this. I'm so reminded of almost every conversation that I had with black people in Los Angeles while I was there. It's been staggering on so many levels. Black brother, we watched The Order together. I said that was one of the highlights of the trip because this is a black male. He lives in Los Angeles. He has asthma, but he lives in Los Angeles. We saw the film together, but he was born, I don't want to misstate it. He spent his formative years in Seattle. I'm not sure if he was actually born here, but he, like his school, elementary school, and all like formative childhood development years were right here in Seattle. Anyway, we watched The Order together, talked prior to the film, blah, 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 all that. Got to talk about racism, white supremacy, of course, and living in LA, since he lives in LA. So I was asking about the traffic and blah, 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 all that, his experiences between the two. Now, he said he lives downtown in Los Angeles, which is not in the zone of the fire, but we'll get to the but later. He's not in the fire zone. He lives downtown. Now, he said going to downtown LA, he said once the sun goes down, it is like Mad Max Thunderdome. Now, that is a movie metaphor. We were at a film festival in Hollywood, which they were, I think, a part of the alert, perhaps evacuation, all the rest of it. So, metaphor, for people who've not seen Mad Max, and they've had a couple different versions of it, it's like this, I think it's set in California in some like post-apocalyptic future, and everything has fallen apart. And importantly, it is a desert. The people do look thirsty, but they brawl and fight. It's just total chaos and mayhem. It is not a system of justice. It looks like people are mistreated, and it even looks like people have difficulty conceiving children. From my recollection, I haven't seen it in a minute, but I definitely remember it was not an oasis. It seemed like it might have even been difficult to get water, but it definitely was a desert. But he said that's what downtown is like in the evenings. Mad Max. Rah, rah. And he said it's even worse because the World Series was there, and it was Halloween. So it's even worse. If you can imagine, like, wow. So we're talking about all of the unsafety, of all of this, and the criminal act, and the drugs, and the drunken behavior, and all of this. They go, and it's so many people. Like, they have that in downtown, and they'll have unhoused people and all of that in other cities. But hey, unless you're in New York City, most of us do not live in a city with a population of 10 million people. Most of us don't live in a state with a population of 10 million people. So, it is astronomical, the level. I mean, you talk about crime, what have you. If you live in a little ho-hum town of 60,000 people, like, that is way different than being in a place with 10 million people and crime and poverty and no grocery stores and hot dogs aplenty, and you're near the border, so you already know you're going to have drugs. Freeway Rick Ross told us all about that. And I even had to pause, man, before we can leave the fires out for the minute. We'll get back to that in a second. Man, you pile up everything you know about Los Angeles. Movies, books, what you've seen, what you heard, your vacations. What Negro experience connected with LA is constructive and positive that you know of? I can't even think of anything that I could connect. Like what? Snoop? Dr. Dre? Kendrick Lamar? Like, what would be the Nipsey Hussle? What would be the connection that's constructive? I can't even think of. Everything it's shootouts, gangs, Tukey Williams. Like, that's what I would think of. The Bloods, the Crips, Boys in the Hood. That's what I would think of, like something awful. Black people struggling, having a difficult time, and being in conflict with other black people, or conflict with other non-white people, or Mark Furman. That's what Rodney King, that's what I would think of with Los Angeles. I would not think of anything. It's nothing I could think of that would be like, oh yeah, black people came up and doing that thing. No, not one thing. Not, you would have to point it out to me, like, hey, this is, Negro experience in the invention of the SWAT team to go and take down the Black Panther Party LA chapter. What? You'd have to point it out to me. Bunchy Carter being assassinated at UCLA, you'd have to point it out to me. It's nothing I can think of constructive connected to black people and LA. I'm sure it's got to be something in there, but I mean, the general trajectory is system of white supremacy racism. NWA, that's Compton, but I mean, if you want to cheat a little bit, you all can let me know that one too. Any hoodles. I have to pause again because I just wouldn't have had all this to say, probably on any level, if I had not just gone to California. And even that broke black Gus T that I just said. It's not like I am a globetrotter. I hadn't been to California in years, and more importantly, hadn't even thought about going to California. I think there was a brief moment we were going to maybe have a yoga retreat, but we didn't have enough people, and although I guess we did, but whatever. We ended up not doing it, not going to California. This was even before COVID-19. But other than that, I had not given any thought to going to California for any reason, not out of spite or what have you. Just, it wasn't even in my brain computer. I don't, globe travel or whatever. Jonestown. That reading about all of those black people, many of them black Californians, motivated me to get off my hind parts and leave my beloved Seattle 206 to go down to San Francisco by way of LA, just to do the film festival and then to get back up to North California. But there is a Jonestown LA component, and I did do my Jim Jones while I was in LA and even beyond. But man, I cannot tell you, being in LA, talking about the air pollution with almost everyone I spoke with, to then go to Malibu, see areas that are literally on fire where it looks very close. Might not be exactly the same. I'd need the GPS coordinates and all that. I did take pictures, so I mean, I guess it would be possible to go and match up and see if it's, still there. But I mean, Malibu has been directly impacted. Some of the very houses on the beach and stuff, I was on the beach in Malibu, and I literally sat on the beach in Malibu. Date stamp it October 28th because the festival ended on the 27th. Monday, October 28th. I sat on the beach in Malibu. I said, climate change is going to take all of this. And the this I was talking about is all the expensive houses that were inches behind me because the beach was about a meter. Or excuse me, about 10 meters, sorry. The beach was about 10 meters, 10 yards before you hit the water. And I said, man, if sea level rise, if that happens at all, if there's any truth to that at all, and it comes up in any way, shape, form over the next, 4 decades or so, you're going to have the tide in your back lawn, literally on your porch, like all of this is done. And that's not even to mention now, do they have hurricanes? And is that going to be a part of how the climate shifts and everything? Are they going to have storms and hurricanes and forget all that? And are we in the double whammy zone? Are we going to have sea level rise as a problem and wildfire potential? I wasn't even thinking about the wildfire component. I promise you, that didn't enter my mind at all. The smog, I remember complaining like, dang, we are out on the beach and the smog is still here. I remember complaining about that, like, this place is the lamest. Like, you can't even get away from the smog. Like, what in the world? And I said, climate change is going to take all this. Like, There is no way. I looked around. It's like white people have got a lot of expensive homes. Some of them look like they've been here for a minute and probably cost millions of dollars. I went up to the other end of Malibu Beach. I saw where the surfers were. They were talking about the surfer gang and how they were all getting together to support you. White people, man, they will get together and it's just a fire. We're going to get through it. But when I saw the surfer gang, I took pictures. Said I'm going to have to go back through my phone and everything and my uploads to see the pictures that I took at Malibu Beach, because I took a picture of the pier and the surfers and all that. Then, go see if that stuff is still there. But, man, I didn't see a whole lot of black surfers at all. Then I went and got vegan pizza in Malibu up at the Whole Foods. But I said climate change is fixing to take all of this. I had no idea. Like, we're on the clock, like right now, and I was not thinking wildfire at all, even though I had seen the fires before. I guess I was just so thankful that wasn't happening while I was there. And then there were so many other, they're about to riot and burn down buses, Carmageddon, about the World Series. There were so many other things to worry about. It's just, I guess, out of sight, out of mind. But, man, it has been, I don't even have words for someone who doesn't even really travel to say, man, for an event that everyone in the world is talking about, I was just there. And I just said climate change is going to take all of this. Like, man, it has been a little, at minimum, wow. The Creator did say you are supposed to go to California. You can see some things on the news. Experiencing it is very, very different. Man, I cannot tell you, having just been to Malibu, seeing all this is very, I even said, I said, if I had to go back, if somebody forced me, counter racist purposes, whatever, we're doing a project, and you got to come down here, Jonestown, something like that, constructed, you got to come back to LA specifically. I said, if I had to go, it'd have to be brief. I cannot stay for a long time. It has to be brief. It's a crap roll going to LA. Something bad could happen, earthquake, riot, the Rams could win the Super Bowl, anything could happen, could be bad. Oh, man, can't stay long. Got to be quick. It can be expensive. Oh man, just because I do not want to go to LA. Got to have a mask. I was not even thinking fire. Got to get me a good mask and see if they got an air filter. Where they're going to be. They say you can't even get air filters in LA. You can't even get air filters. I said I would need an air filter, and I said if I had to stay somewhere, I would want to be on the UCLA side of town. That way I could go to UCLA really quick and do research. Couldn't even do that now. Ghost town. Or I would want to stay in Malibu. That way I could go to the beach. I could still go to LA. Two different cities. For people who don't, these are totally different cities. That's part of the lie of LA is so lame and toxic and bad and impoverished and no grocery stores and everything else that they lie. See, they'll show Laker games and they'll show you Santa Monica Pier and the fairs will go, woo, LA, we love Kobe Bryant, woo. That is not Los Angeles. That is in LA County. That is not Los Angeles. That is Santa Monica. Malibu, where they're showing all this, that's Malibu. They have their own police department, fire department, all that. That is not Los Angeles. Now, greater LA and all that, right, it's close, you can drive to it and all that. Try now, even that it's close now. Okay, let the Dodgers make the World Series and then see how close it is to drive from Malibu to downtown LA. Anyway, but these are different cities, all around LA or what have you. But for Malibu, I'd said I would stay out there. You'd be close to the beach, all that. Now, you would not be close to the brothers and sisters. There's not a whole lot of black people out in Malibu, but great view of the beach. They got Whole Foods and grocery stores where I could go and eat and get produce, be happy, and you can still get to UCLA pretty quick from Malibu. Not now. They even said that the road, you couldn't even get access because the road, I said that the road is so close to the water. I said that's a part of the climate change too. If the sea level rises, the road is so close to the tide. I said, man, you might not even be able to drive. Now I think the fire is, the impediment at this point, but still. Not now for both of the areas that I said, oh yeah, that's where I want to stay if I had to go back to LA. Nope. Exact danger zone. Pick again. And regardless of where you pick, and they ain't got no air filters. Anyway, a part of all of this, like I said, is so many layers with regards to now what exactly is happening in Los Angeles. Now, I try to always, play around with sex. Can you imagine being a child in all of this right now? Because you might have had to evacuate. Might be some of the folks out in Altadena where your stuff burned down. Might just be one of the folks, maybe you're in an area of SoCal not impacted by the fire, whoopee, but or not impacted in terms of you didn't lose residence, you still have a place to stay and all that, you lose your clothes or anything of that nature, property, but all that coughing I just did, or you don't know if your school survived, or you don't know if the school is even open. Maybe it survived, but they did close schools as well. Like, I cannot even imagine. Plus, you are watching all of this on TV, hearing all of this. Your parents are stressed, and now I don't know how many times you're a native in this area. I don't know how many times you've lived through, wildfires, drought, earthquake. I don't think LA has had any earthquakes recently. I don't live there, so I don't think they've had anything really, killed a lot of people or damaged structures, not to my recollection. But I mean, with all of that, and then they're talking about and the smog, like I said, like that is something that they talk about. That does impact a lot of people, especially if you have respiratory issues or what have you. So I cannot imagine being a little person, or even if I was in high school or what have you. Even in college, man. I just said that you see a ghost town. Imagine you're about to graduate in the springtime. Man, I'm supposed to be celebrating and enjoying with my friends, or trying to make sure I got everything together so I can walk on time, and we got all this interruption, got to go back on the Zoom like it's COVID. And theoretically, if you're a 2000 class of 2025, you would have started in 2021. That's in the middle of COVID. Like, we started on Zoom and COVID, and that's how we're going out because of the wildfires. Man, and California got hit pretty hard because of COVID too. I cannot imagine being a child. They had a number of audio reports on California just about black children and black schools specifically that burned down, were closed, all of the above. We'll include this one just so folks can kind of get a grasp. We have Bay Area mom, that she's not in LA, but she's in California, talking about the situation with black children, non-white children in California anyway. Z's mom too, former educator, she's in Southern California, talking about all the difficulties that they faced anyway. Can you imagine? LA Unified School District, isn't that what they call it? Can you imagine? We got to go back and teach now, again, once they open the schools back up, and then dealing with all the trauma and anguish. Do their parents still have a job, and blah, 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 and all the rest of it? Come on. Report on some of the schools impact, and this is specifically with black schools in the Los Angeles area that have been impacted. Context of White Supremacy.
For joining us. The Pacific Palisades. Potentially this is one of the most destructive wildfires in Los Angeles history, perhaps in state history, as we learn that they are anticipating more than 5,000 structures lost here. But we know that there are structures lost in a wide swath of Los Angeles County, including in Altadena and that surrounding area because of the Eaton fire. And joining me now is Sean Brown, She is the founder and executive director for the Pasadena Rosebud Academy Charter School, which we have now learned also has burned down in that Eaton fire. Sean, thank you for joining us. It's my understanding that the school is not your only loss, that It sounds like you've lost your home as well, and that your mom and sister have also been impacted. We keep hearing about essentially the generational trauma that's happening here, families being impacted. First of all, let's start with you on a personal level. How are you doing? How is your family doing? Where are you staying?
Right now, I'm doing as best as I can. I have to navigate, two scenarios with the school and then with my personal situation. Right now, my cousin was so gracious to allow me to stay with her, and right now I'm in Pomona. So, but yeah, again, we're navigating the situation as best as we can right now.
And so as you're working on that on a personal level, what about your responsibilities with this school? And now that the school has been lost, how do you move forward with that?
Well, thank goodness I'm very blessed because I have a lot of people who are supporting me. With the Charter School Association, the California Charter School Association has been very instrumental in helping me navigate this situation. My staff has been amazing as well. We've already been on Zoom calls. We are strategizing and really trying to see how we can support our students and our families and our staff members. We have a lot of students who have been heavily affected by this, and our staff members as well. And so we really want to see how we can support them in this time of devastation.
And that's so hard, right? This shared tragedy that you are all in together and trying to move forward from. And tell me a little bit about the wider Altadena community right now, because this firefight is still happening, and we know that this is the fire also that has turned deadly.
Yes, I had an opportunity to drive through there, and it just looks awful. The whole community has been devastated, and it's just destroyed. And the community is such a small community, but we are very tight-knit. We take pride in where we live, and people are just trying to figure out how to navigate what are the next steps and get through this situation as best as possible.
I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm inspired by your attitude here and your willingness to help your community. So Sean Brown, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Why haven't you learned anything?
And back to our top story today, the fires in Southern California. More than 500,000 students have been out of school across the LA metro area this week. Several schools in the nation's second largest public school district have been damaged or burned down altogether. NPR's Janaki Mehta talked to some families in eastern LA.
Beneath orange skies and raining ash, families trickled into Hollenbeck Middle School in the Boyle Heights neighborhood on Thursday morning. Dozens of parents and young children came in waves, many wearing masks. The air was thick with the smell of smoke. They were here to pick up free meals provided by the LA Unified Public School District for its students. One of the parents here was Sylvia Garcia. She has 4 daughters ranging from age 10 to 17 who go to school in LAUSD. Garcia says back on Wednesday, the day after the fire started, she had just finished dropping her kids off to their various schools.
But then the school called us right away to pick them up.
Hundreds of schools in the LA area were shut down shortly after students arrived Wednesday morning. The largest public school district here, LAUSD, has yet to say when they will reopen. On Thursday, LAUSD opened up 8 food distribution sites where families could get 2 meals per student, and they opened up 8 more today. Sylvia Garcia says anything helps right now.
It's like a whole nother 2 extra meals that we have to give them at home, because at least when they go to school and they got breakfast and lunch, it's like you only worry about dinner.
Garcia stopped working over a year ago because one of her daughters developed a health condition and needed care. So her family relies on her husband's income as a house painter. And since schools shut down, she hasn't just been looking after her 4 kids. She's also helping out friends who work. On Thursday, she had 6 kids in her 3-bedroom home.
So I put, some kids in the living room, some kids in another room, and some kids, I have an attached garage, so I put them there.
LAUSD has made online materials available for virtual learning, but Garcia says she's lost power on and off since the fire started, so accessing online education has been tricky. Garcia's youngest daughter, Mia, who's in 4th grade, would rather be at school.
Do you like doing school in person more? Or
in person, because I spend a lot of time with my friends.
Her mom, Sylvia, also wishes schools that aren't directly affected by fires could have stayed open, like the ones her kids go to.
I thought, the safest place where they could be, it would be in school, because I believe that's the best place.
Alberto Carvalho, superintendent of LAUSD, was visiting the site too. And he acknowledges closures are tough on families in more ways than one.
When we close schools, we are creating a set of very difficult circumstances and conditions for some families. Not closing schools, we are certainly disadvantaging other families. It's never an easy solution.
Carvalho has led LA Unified through the pandemic, and he remembers leading Miami-Dade public schools through hurricanes. But he says he's never encountered a challenge quite like these fires.
We're going to try to make the best out of a very, very difficult set of conditions that have no precedent in our community.
The United Teachers of Los Angeles Union issued a statement criticizing the decision to close schools after students had already arrived on campuses on Wednesday. They said if LAUSD had acted sooner, they could have, quote, prevented the current dysfunction causing disruptions for families, students, and educators. But Carvalho says there's no one solution to address everybody's needs.
It is that level of unpredictability, volatility, and dynamic conditions that force us to make a district-wide decision.
While schools remain closed, LAUSD is partnering with the YMCA to make childcare free for families displaced by the fires and for children of essential workers. The district is also making telehealth services available. In the meantime, families like Sylvia Garcia's all over Los Angeles are helping each other get through this continuing crisis.
You have to depend on your friends. You have to depend on your neighbors. You have to depend on whatever help you have around.
Everyone here hopes fire conditions improve in the coming days, so students, families, and all of Los Angeles can start to return to some kind of normalcy. Janaki Mehta, NPR News, Los Angeles.
Context of white supremacy. I don't know what normalcy will be, but man, best to all of the non-white children. I said that the concern that was raised in that report, you had a non-white mom saying, man, we normally, Monday through Friday, we'd send the children to school. They would eat breakfast, lunch, and then I'd just provide dinner. Now, I have to do all three. Whoa, a lot more food, a lot more money. And maybe I'm working, maybe I'm not. Some people, job was on fire or whatever, same type of thing. I said that. I said, wow, they said 500,000 children. That's why I said the volume. Like in the city that you live, if they close school, it's a big deal, but I'm pretty sure that is not 500,000 children being out of school. Whoa, and they didn't even close all the schools, I'm sure. That was just, a partial closing in the LA district. But I mean, wow. Now, what sort of impact does that have? Even, generational, and especially on non-white children. White people, certainly, they lost property and all the rest, schools and all that good stuff. But in particular, black children, and for so many reasons. And in fact, rewind to what we heard at the beginning, Sean Brown, Rosebud Academy, black female, victim of white supremacy. She lost her residence, and she runs the school, Rosebud Academy. School burned down too. Another double whammy. They have GoFundMe and what have you set up so you can support Miss Brown, Rosebud Academy Black. Like I said, I was surprised at the number of Sean Browns and Rodney Nickersons, Mama D, Delise Curry. I was surprised because I think at first they were showing like Mel Gibson and white people, you know, at Hollywood, you know, this LA, white people who had these really expensive homes out in Malibu and Palisades and what have you, which is true, they are, but there are also black people out there as well, which, like I said, news to me. How about that? And a significant number, they said like approximately 20% of the folks in Altadena classified as black specifically. They didn't even do people of color, non-white. These are black people specifically. They even have a young lady, Nikki High, Nikkihigh, Nikki High, black female. She has a bookstore to celebrate the life and work of Octavia Butler, black female writer. She was born in the California area, although she eventually moved to the Seattle area, and I think she passed away up here in Seattle, and they buried her remains. They buried her remains back in SoCal. The cemetery where her remains were buried was threatened by the wildfires. Anyway, Miss High, she has a bookstore called Octavia's Bookshelf, where she's providing resources, aid for black people in the Altadena region, and just a place where they can come and charge their phone and, you know, all that good stuff, like spectacular counter-racist effort. But that's what I mean about, like, man, if we're going to live here, and even pointing out that Octavia Butler, some of her fiction, she also, they talked about that dystopian California future, boiling planet, acid rain, if it rains at all, fire and brimstone. She talked about that in her, or wrote about that in her fiction. They pointed that out as well. Sci-fi fiction, I believe they call it. Celebrated author Octavia Butler. But again, her remains at the cemetery down in SoCal, threatened by the wildfires. But you would have to have knowledge of the types of threats in your area, having your self-preservation button on. And then, hey, if we're going to stay here, we are ride or die for, you know, Kobe Bryant, SoCal, Los Angeles. Okay. We're going to have all kinds of, number one, what's up with the air quality? We have to do something about that. And then, okay, when they have these fires, evacuation, do we leave? Do we stay? If we own property, what can we do to secure it? Blah, 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 blah. Going over our insurance policy, make sure our insurance doesn't get canceled with all this, because they were canceling, saying, up, you're in an area with a fire risk, policy voided, that sort of thing. So making sure we got all that, our ducks in a row on that. And I mean, it would be such a responsibility. They talked about having, you know, what do you need to have packed up in your bag if you do have to have an evacuation? Where do you go to get trustworthy information? Because they were lying about it. Even they were having problems. They were getting, I guess, large numbers of people. They were getting text messages or alerts saying that there was an evacuation notice, and then it turned out that it wasn't. It was some sort of malfunction and all this. I mean, it would take a lot of planning. You're going to be in an area that is routinely dangerous, unsafe, unhealthy. You have to plan accordingly, or just, you know, oh, well, I didn't plan accordingly and I just deal with the consequences. Whenever they have one of these natural disasters, seemingly every other year or so, man, I just hope for the best. Okay, that is a strategy you could adopt. And I even have to, your strategy would have to include, I minimized LAPD. I should not have. They have said, what I talked about this past weekend now, same thing with Hurricane Katrina, any sort of these events like this, you know what they're going to say, whether it's true or not. Whether it's true or not, you know what they're going to say. The looter, Leroy, Jamal, after your 50-foot TV, said that old lame Gus T just said, I ain't got no 50-foot TV. Got all these broke, no-count black people around here that's not willing to work hard, watching TV on an antenna. These scoundrels, they wait till a natural disaster and then they come get your HD TV. Looters. and say we got to dispatch the National Guard. And see, that's another thing I'd have to think about. Now, how excited am I going to be to live in an area where they routinely have the National Guard deployed, and or some sort of armed white militaristic presence? Because they did that after they rioted when the Dodgers won the World Series too, because they set the bus on fire. And after the Lakers won the championship. That's what I'm saying. Like, you would have to think now, how many times do they have conflagrations like this where it's going to be large numbers of armed white people in the streets in a city with 10 million people? Now talk about smoke in the streets. Indeed. But there were reports, because we got all this looters, Leroy looting, what we gonna do? That they got the National Guard and all this big police presence. They start denying people access to neighborhoods and such, arresting people for trespassing and all that, and saying, now, white people with money do exist in this region. You know what they can do? Private security. They already got that. Got the videos of that. We got to go out and patrol militias, if you will. We got to go out and patrol. Leroy Looter is not coming around here. I was looking for the signs that they had in Katrina. Say, you loot, we shoot. That's something you would have to be mindful of as well. Like, ooh, I can't really be. They said don't go outside anyway because of the air, but even still, ooh, can't just be willy-nilly running around. Like, better calm down, stay inside until, you know, things cool down a little bit. Like, whoa, they accuse me of looting or trespassing or whatever. And even if you are a property owner, just like Katrina, New Orleans, and some folks, well, I'm a property owner. Well, prove it, Leroy Looter. And even if you're a property owner, they said same thing they said in Katrina. Maybe you get access to come in and see your property. Maybe you don't. And they might have valid reason. They might say, you know, the fires are still raging, which they are. It's not safe. Or we think you're a looter. Or we got a line and, you know, all this. But I mean, they said they had lines of 90 cars in some places where people were, you know, stacked up trying to get in to check on their property and get their valuables and make sure that they didn't lose everything they own in the world and all the rest of it. And, you know, we got, now, allegedly, they say that they have arrested some people for looting, even said they arrested someone for being in Kamala Harris's property. Allegedly, that's what they said they arrested. I think it might have been one, maybe even two people got arrested for all that. But I mean, that would also be something to consider if you do have to evacuate. Can you secure your property from the fire and or looters? And then are you going to be able to access your property if you are required to evacuate to save your hide? Are they going to let you back in? Are you going to need documents to prove that you live there? Are you going to have to get by armed white men to get there? Like, that might be something to process too. Anywho, another segment, like there's so many, you know, issues and components of this. Like I said, there's a black bookstore up there, black neighborhood, so-called, black fatalities, the looting component. There's so many aspects to this. Even water, where you're in an area where they have drought problems and the wildfires have been so widespread, they've had difficulties maintaining pressure on the water hoses for the firefighters to fight the blazes and what have you. In an area with all of this, they've even had warnings about the water possibly being toxic in some areas where you might not be able to consume it. If you're in the areas where the fires are, might be dangerous, and some of the other places where they've had shut-offs or what have you. Just wow. It is not looking like I would not want to be hanging out in the Southern California region, maybe in California at all right now. And in fact, if there's one audio clip, couldn't play everything, but there's one audio clip. It was from this past weekend. There was a white man. If anybody is really interested, I can go through it and nab it really quick. It was on YouTube. It was on KTLA, California News. But it was a white man, and you know, he did not seem like he was a Hollywood actor. He didn't seem like he was Brad Pitt's cousin or anything, or even attempting to be. He was just a regular white expert scientific dude sitting in his little scientific white dude office with his books behind him and such. and they were asking him about, what is the move going forward. And he said, we, white people, we are either going to figure out how we solve these problems and do a better job managing these wildfires, preventing major loss of property and what have you, like what we've had here and life. Either we're going to figure out how to do a better job with that, and we have not thus far, or California will not be habitable. Now, I paused because I said, well, maybe he's being hyperbolic. A lot of people have been dramatic with all of this. It is Hollywood. But he seemed like he was being kind of serious. And then when I went back, like I said, Democracy Now!, when they had Peter Kalmus, white man, when he was on last Friday, he said, I escaped. I left California for that same logic, same reasoning. This is just going to get worse. And white people are not going to invest a better effort in changing anything or correcting their behaviors. Elon Musk, Tesla, be damned. It's just going to be more the same. So, no, it's just going to be worse. You might even have 100,000 people die in some sort of major climate event in SoCal or wherever. But he said the whole state of California. This is the white man in the KTLA report. He said all of California. And I said, whoa, dang. That would be something to process, like if they, really think like, hey, these wildfires, and I know they don't just have wildfires in one part of California. I've seen them in other parts of the state. So that would be something to consider, like, man, are we really vested, saying we want to be here, locked in, entrenched for the next 10 years, 15 years? Like, really? Do we have a sound plan to do so? And then it would require, I would think, we have got to pay attention to the news. Mandatory. I mean, weather. We might even become, aspiring meteorologists because we are checking so much and paying attention to what's happening. And oh my goodness, fire conditions. What's the humidity? When did it rain last? Like, man, we got almanacs by the plenty in the house and I mean, really, just to be on top of it, not to mention supplies, water, air filters, all that if we're going to be here. And this is the same thing I said for, folks who live New Orleans, Florida. If you live in an area where they have hurricanes, like, hey, they have earthquakes in Seattle. Gus T, I need to do a better job prepping for the earthquakes because they do have those here. I've been here. I've been in California when they had an earthquake. I've been in Seattle when they had an earthquake. Even the earthquake here in Seattle was recent. That was within the last, year. But, hey, these are major catastrophes, and they have big, fat reports that white people have authored talking about how when they have disasters like this, call them natural disasters, non-white people classified as black, do worse. The Red Cross is not going to have your back. Other white people, all of that. And, hey, it might be that other non-white people are hurting just as bad as you. I just said the young lady where she runs the Rosebud Academy, Sean Brown, she lost the school and her residence. And they said her other family members, they had lost, properties and such too. That's about what you can expect. And then the white vultures, you don't need that property. Give it here for 2 cents. We'll take it off your hands for it. We'll give you a quarter for it. We'll be generous today. We'll give you a quarter. Give us that property. And they got the Olympics hooked up, as I said at the beginning. Context of White Supremacy, counter-racist review of the catastrophe in Los Angeles, Southern California, with the wildfires. And like I said specifically, my thought process around all this, having just been there, even more, man, particularly because out of all the things in Los Angeles, everything, that I was able to do and see over that quick 8-day period with the World Series in tow and getting out just before the riot kicked off, for my main point takeaway to have been the air quality. That was what I talked about the whole time I was there. That was what I talked about even after I left. I remember it's in the archives. I was contrasting it to San Francisco, which does not always have the best air quality either, but it was way better than LA. Way better. And Berkeley, because I spent a lot of time on both sides of the bay. But I talked about that repeatedly, and I even said it made me remember so many of the conversations that I had with so many different people while I was in Los Angeles. Black male that I mentioned before, he writes spoiler-free reviews. Privileged black male. He was at the film festival. Like I said, one of the highlights of the festival. Got to watch The Order. Whole movie about white supremacist gang in Washington State that actually does come down to California, Ukiah. Devontae. But we watched The Order, able to talk about racism and Washington State history. I was tickled. But before we got to all that, we were chatting up, and he realized I was from Seattle because I had my Seattle Supersonics hat on. He was like, "Oh, I used to live in Seattle. I was born and raised in." Well, I took the born part out, but I was raised in Seattle. Formative school years in Seattle. I was like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy." And blah blah blah. We talked about how long he had been down here, and I was asking him. I was like, "Man, how do you, does the air, does it bother you? Like, how do you adjust to that?" Blah blah blah. And he said, "Oh man, the reason that is troubling you is because, man, you've been spoiled. You've been way up there in great Pacific Northwest Seattle and breathing all that good, fresh, clean air. They got the trees and rain and everything. You got all that fresh air in your lungs. He said, man, you come down here." Whew, he said, "Man, my asthma acted up something terrible down here." Boop, my brain computer. That's exactly how that moment went. My brain computer just logged all of that. It wasn't a, "Oh my God, what a coon," or name calling. None of that. None of that. Victim of white supremacy. And I don't know his bank account. Now, he might get paid, $1 million to be writing at spoiler-free reviews. Or he got, I don't know, maybe he get free courtside tickets to the Lakers games or USC games. I don't know. Maybe he got correct compensation for all this. But I logged that in my brain computer. Like, wow. The asthma again. I cannot even imagine being in Los Angeles with a respiratory problem and all of the foreign filth that they have in the air. Like, whoa. Whoa. And he's sitting in the man, my asthma act up something terrible down here, Gus T. And I logged that in my brain computer. Like, wow. I mean, that is, what's better than breathing? Maybe I should have asked that question. Like, what's better than breathing? I mean, I don't know. And maybe he has a whole career goal. Maybe he's only going to be there for a brief period of time or whatever. I don't know. But I mean, I logged that one like, wow, I don't know. If I had asthma, I don't know how I'd feel about living. And I don't have asthma, thankfully. But if I did have asthma or another respiratory condition, I don't know how I'd feel about living in LA. Especially not this week. Like, oh man, and I did check in with my black brother this week since all this was happening. Now, what did he have posted? I shared it for the people who follow on social media. What did my black brother have posted? Let me scroll down, see if I can quote him accurately, exactly. Okay, he said, and today is the 15th, so this is from Monday, the 12th. First day since the fires started where I didn't wake up with a burning sensation in my lungs. A good omen. I hope so. Thoughts and prayers. Same thing I told. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayer. And fresh air. I told him that too. We're sending all of the Seattle fresh air possible down free or spoilerfreereviews.com, my privileged black brother. Now, I don't know how many of you all wake up on a day, any day, where your lungs are burning. That does not sound fun. Before we got to the wildfires, my privileged black brother told me, Brother Gus T, since I've came down here, abandoned old Seattle, man, my asthma act up something terrible. That's what he said before the wildfires. Now with the wildfires, it's lungs, burning sensation. I would have to, I mean, what's better than breathing? I keep the great Neely Fuller Jr. I don't even hear people quote that one, but you should. If you live in California, like, you should have that tacked on your wall. What is better than breathing? I truthfully wouldn't care how many courtside tickets I got to the Laker game, like, real talk. The Laker game, let's say they played double overtime, max, is great. LeBron James had 50 points, and Bronny James had a triple-double too. It was the best thing ever, and the Lakers won. Whoopee. It's 3 hours, 4 hours. I breathe all day long. Now, I don't know about the rest of you black brothers and sisters. Maybe you remember Harlem Nights? Remember that when he said, we should be sorry. Anyway, I breathe all day long. All day long. Even when I travel, even down in LA, I still breathe all day long. So if there's something wrong with the breathing, that's going to be an irritant all day long. Yep. That's why I just kept coming back all the time. So what's better than breathing? I kept thinking, like, I can stop the list right there, right? When I get to, so what's wrong with LA? Breathing? Yeah, this smoldering. What else, though? It's cool. I can stop right there, right? I don't have to add anything. I mean, that's going to be an all day long, maybe all night too problem, right? What's better than breathing? Man, if I could sing, I'd be doing my Raphael Sadiq, and I'm not trying to be funny. I didn't even, the Harlem Nights thing, I'm not trying to be funny. This is serious, because I could have been stuck in L. I would have lost my mind. If I had been in LA right now, even for 8 days, if it had just somehow the universe lined up and my 8 days happened to be sometime to coincide with the 8 days of the fire, which did happen to some people. I've seen some people, they're on vacation. They don't even live in California, but they just got stuck there for those 8 days, and, you know, now you got to do the best you can until you can get to the airport. Man, I would have lost my mind. Jesus, I was grousing. I can't even imagine. I'm groused about the air all day long while I was there. Now what's it going to be? I've been thinking that the whole time. What would you have sounded like being down there then? Aside from, you know, I hope I don't die and all the rest of it and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Man. I talked about this the whole time I was there, the air quality, the whole time I was there. Even get date specific about it. Monday, October 28th, in Los Angeles. 2 days before I get to fly out, 2 days before they rioted and burned that bus down. Lovely black female. She's out. She has some sort of event. I wish I had saved her flyer because I would have called her. I wish I had saved that flyer. She stops me. We're in downtown LA in the daylight, so it's a little bit safer. A little bit safer. I'm looking different museums and such, and this is the same day I went to Malibu. Same day. I bump into this young lady, and she's coming up to chat because I don't talk to people and the LA folks and keep so she comes up, she's promoting her event stuff. She's like, oh, okay, you visiting, you from out of town? Like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. And just like, you know, you enjoying LA, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the air quality is a little tough. She's like, oh, yeah, we got small, blah, blah, blah. She says, where are you from? And I pointed, I had my Seattle hat on. I said, Seattle. Man, she scrunched her face up so tough when she said, where are you from? And I said, Seattle. I mean, it was as though I said, look here, black sister. I got these Pampers in my bag here, and I got some Brussels sprouts that I wrestled up from home. Take a whiff of these Pampers and pop a few Brussels sprouts in your mouth. Let me know what you think. That was the way she turned her face up. Like, Seattle? Doesn't it rain there? That's the way she said it. Exactly the way that was another indelibly boop, 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 printed in my brain computer. Even one, I attached that to Fuller. Now, what's better than breathing? Now, two, I also attach that to Dr. Kanban, and our self-preservation button is off. You live in an environment that is known for having wildfires, droughts, water deficiencies. What is your beef with rain? It should be like the opposite reaction that we have. Like here, sunshine, oh, people lose their mind. Like, it's going to be sunny for 30 minutes. Oh, stop everything. We got to run outside. Like, all activity cease. We got to run outside. The sun is going to be out for 30 minutes. We got to get a teaspoon of vitamin D. That's the attitude that they should have in Southern California about rain. Not this young lady. She's, see ya? Yeah. Doesn't it rain there? I filed that one in the brain computer. And we're in the desert. We are in the desert. I wanted to say, did you see how brown it is? Like all that, like. Anyway, I responded after I filed that in my brain computer. I responded to the young lady. I said, ma'am, yes, it does rain in Seattle, and that does help a tad, just washing things out, refreshing the air so you can breathe. And she had such a quizzical look on her face, like she had to process for a second, like, breathe. She's like, okay, oh man, oh, I wish I had saved her flyer. I would have it. Not to gloat, one, are you safe? You're okay. You got air filters, mask. Everybody's, staying inside, all the rest of it. But man, those folks in Southern California, the rejoicing, parading, and marauding that would go on right now if it rained a teaspoon, not for a day, not for an hour, if it just rained for 10 minutes. Man, you would have folks converting to white Jesus in the street if it just rained for 10 minutes. Yes, I am from some place where it rains. We are not in the desert. We do not have smog choking everybody and all the life. We even have vegetation. Imagine that. It etched in my brain computer forever, and that was just before I went to Malibu, where she said, we did talk about other things. It wasn't like the conversation ended there, but woo, that is black person in LA, drought, water deprived, wildfire-ridden LA. I don't do with no rain. Yeah. And even Fuller has talked about that. I remember Fuller had talked about that, and I didn't appreciate it as much, where he said, like, we had that contempt for clouds, and it was a dark day, and it rains. You won't eat if you don't have no clouds and rain, like you sit out there and pile up all of them sunny that they said in California. It ain't rained in 8 weeks. Maybe on a warming planet, when Raphael Sadiq or anybody else tells you it never rains in Southern California, that ain't nothing to brag about. That is a warning sign on a warming planet. Everybody need water. Whoa. Never rain? 8 weeks and counting. Whoa. 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 This place might be dangerous. Desert? Yep. Like the rain is an enemy. Like, Jesus Christ, come on. Out of balance with nature. The rain is cool. Obviously, you don't want too much of that, but you don't want too much sunshine either. Balance. The rain is our friend. I will never gripe. I don't remember griping about the rain too much in Seattle anyway, but I will never grouse about the rain in the 206 again. We don't have wildfires here, thankfully, at least not at this point. Anyway, with the air, and that being the thing that I talked about so much, and then that you can't even get air filters in LA now. It boggled my mind. We had a listener, or I can't even say listener because we have a lot of folks who say, I'm a Cows listener. And what that means is they'll tune in wherever they listen to the Cows, YouTube, Podbean, Podchaser, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, lots of other places where the cool podcasts hang out. But they'll listen for like 30 seconds, or they listen to one program like 10 years ago. We've been on for 16 years or whatever, but they are not Cows listeners. And the one time that they did listen, it's like they'll have the Cows playing on the lowest possible volume while they are watching a replay of the Mike Tyson fight and cooking dinner. So they're not really paying, like, I don't really, that coon Gus T, I'm not going to listen to him too tough. But they'll say, I'm a cow, my black brother Gus T, I live it. That's why I point that out all the time. I've asked y'all for years not to call me brother, my black brother Gus T. I got to listen to the Cows. I've been supporting you and all the work you do for years, my black brother. Yeah. Anyway, I spoke about the air quality in California as really, central component of my thought process. Not about California, but about Los Angeles. Lots to say about California because there's so much in Jonestown, San Francisco, so much. But for LA, air quality, what's more important than breathing? Now I just want to slow walk this email exchange. I read this over the weekend, but just reading it here because it goes back to the air quality thing. And then even again, us not being serious. Dr. Camp, our self-preservation button is off. Fuller said, wrote it in the code book too. We being non-white people, victims of racism, I'd say particularly people classified as black, we are silly about things that are serious and serious about things that are silly. Wildfires would be serious. Non-white person wrote, they said they heard, while I was broadcasting in California, that they heard all this, allegedly. So they write in, and I'm assuming it's a non-white person, might even be, who knows, might be someone classified as white, who knows. Hi Gus, I am an LA native and Dodgers fan and am listening to your election broadcast. You were in the wrong neighborhood. Should you return, perhaps I could advise you. Again, I said this over the broadcast. We are serious about things that are silly. I did not go to Los Angeles to see the Dodgers capture the world championship. I don't care nothing about Shohei Ohtani. I do not care, man. I do not care nothing about the Dodgers. You think they're going to repeat and what they're going to do in the off season and all that. I do not care. I don't even come on here talking about the Seahawks or nothing. And I've said explicitly, like, man, just in terms of priorities, what is important with our time, energy, and our thinking on a planet with wildfires and drought, and racist man, racist woman crying out for justice on a planet with all these problems. The Dodgers? The Lakers? The Rams? The Seahawks? That's what we should be focused on? Got to get them Dodgers, man. Got to get them Seahawks. They're going to get it next year. Woo! Are you serious? Yeah, no. What did he say? Fuller said, we are silly about things that are serious. Gus T was on a business trip. Gus T was on a business trip. A business trip about Jonestown that coincided to include the film festival, which was also a business, and Jonestown for LA. But that's what I talked about the whole time, being on business. Now, even that about the wrong neighborhood, I can only say again, I talked about this before, but that concept of the wrong neighborhood for healthy food. Because that's what this is. Hollywood and bad food I talked about. They got hot dog stands everywhere. They got whole websites and things. And white people have done all these reports about all the food deserts in Los Angeles and the greater LA area. That's what I saw, especially in comparison to where I live. You could drive blocks and blocks and blocks, and you would just see blocks of hot dogs and McDonald's. I am not accustomed to that at all. Like, what in the world? Jeez. And then, like, once you get out of that, UCLA, Malibu, Beverly Hills, these are the areas that are alert, might have to leave, whoa. Anyway, but he says he'll give us advice and all that. Now, the thing I would add here is I would probably be leery about taking advice from someone who does not keep up with local information. We'll keep reading. So there was just short email, LA native. I even sent pictures of me being in Malibu because I visited so many different neighborhoods of California. I guess that'd be one other presumption too. It's been my experience that black people, because we don't really pay attention to other black people, we minimize or totally ignore the information that they're actually telling us and just insert our own thoughts, preconceived notions about how we think of black people, and we have such a low opinion and low value of black people because of the system of white supremacy racism. It's, oh, you were just in a bad neighborhood. It's not, hey, I told you all, I was in Malibu, Beverly Hills, LA, Hollywood. I was not just in one location. I was in a lot of different spots. And I mean, really, is Hollywood the bad part of it? Now, if Hollywood is the bad part of LA, deuces, that's all I need to know about LA. I will be in the 206, man. Thank you kindly. But we'll continue. I showed some of the pictures of pre-fire Malibu. Like I said, some of these, I need to go check these pictures out to just see if these structures are unharmed, still here. Anyway, so I said, I don't really need food recommendations or whatever. Where do you go with the same thing? I said it right here, air quality. Where do you go for the air quality? And he said South Bay beaches, Redondo and Hermosa, and next even Manhattan. Now, Redondo Beach, that is not Los Angeles. Again, a lot of times the LA area, it almost seems like everything that is in Southern California just becomes LA. These are different cities and what have you. And he had a recommendation for a cafe to look for as well. I don't have to search out healthy spots. I talked about that before. Now, we didn't speak at all anymore. There was nothing else to say for months. The fires took off last week. I remember this whole exchange. I wrote back and I said, most importantly, I hope you and your attempted family and friends are safe, have properties that are safe, and have access to high quality air filters. That last one, whoo. Remember COVID-19? Remember like 2020, like springtime, like April, May of 2020. If you could get like one of those big containers of hand sanitizer or even toilet paper, whoo, gold. That air filters in the greater metropolitan Los Angeles area, woo, air filters. You probably don't go to LA and sell oranges in front of the Intuit Dome. Go to LA and sell air filters. Anyway, I'm content. This is what I wrote back. The rest is substantially less important. You better believe it. Watching the most recent reports of California wildfires that have lit up all of the places I visited in Los Angeles. Well, not all the places, but a lot of the places that I visited. I remembered our correspondence often. Redondo Beach got air quality warnings just like the whole rest of LA County, which is what I experienced while there and what I would expect, with no sign of improvement. Fact. As Fuller said, what is better than breathing? You cannot imagine how much worse my Los Angeles grousing would have been if anything like this happened while I was there. Facts. I thought I was going to die, be killed while there anyway. Facts. Hope you all are safe and far removed from the flames and bad air. So he wrote back, I'm near Inglewood, non-evacuation area, but that is a food desert, according to white people. And because I haven't been watching TV, I'm going to translate that as I have not been paying attention to the news, which would expand beyond. I haven't been listening to the news, reading the news, and paying attention to information about what's happening locally. That's how I'm going to process that. Friends and relatives from the East and Seattle, my cousins, tipped me off to the approaching fires. That's why I said you probably couldn't give me advice if you are not really paying attention to things that are happening in your area. Simply take my word as someone born here that Redondo Beach air was a world improved from any fire zones. He has that in all caps. If LA is just not your place, I will take your recommendation on where I should visit. I have no recommendation on where anyone should visit, and I've never offered such. I may have lived under, he has derivations, but I think he means deprivations here that I have become accustomed to. Be well and thanks for checking in. He wrote back about why I almost died, and then he wrote back again. He said, above is imagery I received yesterday from a friend whose house stands miraculously unburned on a burned out block. His house did not burn. The house in Pasadena is in Pasadena, blocks from Altadena, 40 miles from Redondo Beach. To add levity to my friend's scare and to celebrate his outcome, I told him about your comments on low-quality Redondo Beach air and a few months ago being unable to find adequate farmers markets. Now, again, I said for accuracy, I was not looking for farmers markets anywhere in California, L.A., or San Francisco. I said I was in L.A. for 8 days. I didn't see any farmers markets. I was in San Francisco for 4 days. I passed the farmer's market. On the 5th day, I made a purchase from a different farmer's market. I didn't look for any of them. I just made that a point. I stumbled on 2 farmer's markets in 5 days in San Francisco. No search required. 0 in 8 days in LA. We both snickered that I did not stumble across any farmers markets in LA, even though they said find, as though I was searching for them. He is a lifelong native too and a Berkeley grad. Go Bears! So we appreciate UCLA's library system as you do. I appreciate Stanford's, UCLA's, Berkeley's. Got lots. Apart from the above, I have some feedback, and you didn't answer my question as to why you felt fear of harm in LA weeks ago. Now, I spoke about that directly on the program, but I guess you didn't pay attention. Moreover, we haven't met, so I don't know what you came across like in person. Your usage of attempted, like I said, attempted family, and lowercase language for activities and titles in referencing other people and even yourself is a clue as to why you had a bad experience in LA. That paragraph right there, I have no idea. Like, I was not exchanging telegrams with people in LA. It's like, oh my God, his grammar is terrible. You can't, like, I did not have any commentary about the people were rude, mean, gave me the cold shoulder, didn't talk to me. I said the number one issue was I can't breathe. That's what I said. I talked to lots of people. Like my man, we met, went to the movies, and the young lady, lots of folks. I talked about the air quality problem with all of them. Whack, that's what I said about, like, man, we do not pay attention at all. We just put whatever. I guess some people say that about LA, that the people are fake, and I couldn't get my film script approved, and I didn't get the part that I wanted. I guess that's a common grouse about it. That's not my grouse. Like, not mine is all that filth in the air. Like, that is not cool at all. What's better than breathing? That's what I said. I even wrote that to him specifically, like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, as fires continue here, no one wants to be wants an attempted firefighter to show up. I have never used that language in my life. Attempted firefighter? Like, and again, that just further shows me, oh, you don't listen to this program on a regular basis. You have no idea what that language of attempted father, attempted family, and some of that Dr. Welsing has been saying that for decades. Fuller has been saying that for decades. So you're not interested, you don't do it, and you don't have to be, but just you have no idea what those terms mean, and that's just something to ridicule and joke about in the midst of wildfires. Got it. And women want husbands, not attempted ones. Well, any females that are looking for a black dude and thinking this guy is going to qualify as a husband, they're going to be disappointed. That's why. Change the language. You don't even have women if you're talking about non-white females, again showing you don't really listen to this program. You're not vested in counter-racist logic, which is most of us. You don't even pay attention to the news in an area that is very dangerous. Got it. I suspect folks here were reacting to your own self-projections and rejecting your projections onto them. This, again, like, are you serious? Like, do you have a PhD in psychiatry? We've never met. And again, I had no commentary at all about people being mean, nasty, none of that. None of that. I had no social commentary at all. My commentary was Eric Garner, George Floyd. They are choking us to death down here. They are choking us to death. That's what I said. And all that got missed and just, you don't know that. Now, slow down the air quality. The air quality. You brag about being a native and offer unsolicited advice. As an LA native, you should be an expert on the air quality. I say, I have concerns about the air quality. You say you're in Inglewood, even Redondo Beach, 40 miles away. I have concerns about the air quality there. Matter of fact, I have concerns about the air quality in Mexico. They sent firefighters up to help in LA. Part of me thought like, ooh-wee, that might be self-preservation button is on. Like, man, these crazy gringos mess around up here and don't get this thing controlled, then they be done burnt up Tijuana, or have our air quality messed up. Like, yeah, man, get up there and ayuda, rapidamente. That did pop into my brain computer, but all of that to the side, they don't just have wildfires in California. They had wildfires here in Canada in 2017, summertime. That's a whole different country, so-called. The wind does not stop at the U.S. border. Whoa, 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 different country. That does not happen. All that soot drifted down. We are 3 driving hours from the Canadian border. We had to close our windows and the blinds almost for the whole summer when those wildfires were going on. And I remember the soot piling up in the window sill, even with the window closed and the blinds closed. And this is Canadian wildfire debris and such leaking all the way down here to Seattle. That's why I said, no way. If I was down there, Inglewood, you could pick anyway. You could put me in San Diego. I would have concerns about the air quality. Now, again, I said you couldn't advise me about nothing. I suspect this person is not listening because you're not a listener. No problem. You don't have to waste your time listening to the program. But with the air quality concerns, that's one I would encourage. Hey, you should be an expert on this. You should be checking the news. If I lived in Southern California, I would be, why are all the air filters gone from the stores? What is going on? Now, they got to do it yourself so you can make your own air filter, but man, what does the news say about the air quality in Los Angeles and beyond?
I'd just like for everyone in here to just inhale deeply and then hold your breath as long as you can and then exhale. And we can do that right now. Just inhale. Okay, maybe you could hold it longer, but that's okay. The reason for this, when Everyone in the world is born on this planet. The first thing that they do, without knowing anything about doing it, to the best of my knowledge, you inhale. And then over a period of time, hopefully a long period of time, you exhale. And you don't inhale again. Now, I do this in a sort of an ecumenical posture, because we're all of different religions. Some of us might even call ourselves atheists. Muslims, Jews, Christians, Buddhists. But one thing that we do, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, atheist, communist, capitalist, socialist, white, non-white, you do the exercise that we call breathing. And nobody has cornered the market on that yet.
Well, we have seen the images. This was what it looked like of raining ash. We're seeing toxic air quality due to historic wildfires. And experts are warning that outside and even inside air could pose serious health risks. Joining us now is an expert, our emergency room physician, Dr. Michael Daigneault, our Fox 11 medical contributor. Dr. D, good to see you. Good evening. Okay, so a lot of people, we knew last week, right when this was happening, smoke was everywhere, the air quality was terrible, you're coughing if you go outside. A lot of people were staying inside. Right. Now we're at a point where hopefully we don't have a lot more fires. A lot of the smoke has dissipated. You look at the air quality sensors, it looks like it's all green. Right. You say deceiving.
Yeah, I think it's falsely reassuring because, as you mentioned, the air quality index, using things like IQ air, if you look at the map today, it's all green. But you have to remember that that only tests for 5 common pollutants. So that's ozone that's close to the ground, particulate matter like wildfire smoke, and then carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide. But it doesn't test for all those carcinogens like lead paint, asbestos, plastics, things that could have been in these buildings pre-code that are now in the air. And there's just no way to test for that. We just have to assume that that stuff is in our environment right now.
Yeah, because a lot of those buildings in the Palisades were built at a time before the asbestos rules went in, and probably some of them in Altadena as well. Sure. So when are we safe? How do we know?
I think the unfortunate answer is we don't. We just have to give it a matter of time, and you just have to assume that even if that air quality index map is green, that you're going to be exposed to those particulates. And I think you have to be very careful. You have to wear the N95 when you go outside, and that's for the broader LA County area. Even if you don't smell smoke, you have to assume you have to protect yourself, because as we said before, we don't want to realize in 10, 20 years that we had a 9/11 type event where people were exposed to all these carcinogens after.
Well, talk about that. So that was especially a lot of the first responders that went and worked on the pile in 9/11, and then years later, a lot of them got cancer.
Right. And, you know, you think about the scale of the World Trade Center, and then you talk about the amount of buildings that were burned with particularly the 2 fires we had here. It makes me really nervous, especially for the first responders, but then for the greater community too.
So you're talking about not even, one thing if you like live in Pacific Palisades, but you're talking about all around.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you don't...
we don't see that. We don't see most people wearing masks right now.
Right, and I think that's the scary part. People think that if they're far from it, they don't smell smoke, that they're potentially safe, and I don't think that's the case, especially if you have cardiovascular disease, lung disease, asthma, you're very young, you're elderly, you're going to be more exposed to having difficulty.
What are you seeing in the ER? Are you seeing people come in with this problem?
Well, right now I work mostly in the South Bay, and so, you know, we haven't had a lot of particular, and it's kind of hard for patients to say, you know, the wildfires set off my asthma, my respiratory disease, my cardiac disease. Certainly there's flu and other things like that right now that are more likely to cause those asthma exacerbations. But I think going forward, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of it.
So bottom line is, if you can work out inside, if you can do stuff inside, try to stay inside, at least for now.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are runners, and they've been asking me if they can go back to their runners club, if they can train outside, and, you know, I'm telling them to still stay in the gym or try to go further south. The farther south you can go to run outside would probably be better. People at home have to make sure that their windows, their vents, their doors are sealed well. Try to limit indoor pollution, so the candles running, smoking, things like that inside. You don't want to do that. You need an air purifier. You need a HEPA filter, and those are just some things you need to do. And I don't think we're out of the woods as far as the air quality, and we won't be for a while.
Yeah, and I wonder if we got some of the things we talked about.
Yeah.
Wearing the N95, keep indoor air clean, limit use of candles, gas, smoking, use HEPA filters, air purifiers, all good advice from Dr. Daigneault. And hopefully someday soon we can get a drizzle and try to clear out some of the air.
That would be wonderful.
Nice wind and a drizzle, not hard rain, because then we're going to deal with mudslides, and that's a whole other issue. Dr. D, great to see you. Glad you're safe.
Thank you.
Fuck say, Malik, how you make your living? I say by breathing oxygen.
When we look at the air quality, that's been a big talker as well. Naturally, because we still have those fires that are burning in the LA area, you're seeing unhealthy air quality. But note how it's starting to trickle in a little bit more to Orange County. And we're seeing for sensitive groups, so people like me who suffer from upper respiratory issues, and maybe that's you at home, making sure that you are limiting your outdoor activities. Also, taking an allergy pill could help too. And so we're going to be watching for some of that smoke filtering in and reducing our air quality here in San Diego County. It is not bad right now. We're still looking at a good reading for some areas, but then you look at this forecast model, and that shows a lot of the smoke that is across the LA area starting to infiltrate and make its way more towards the south. As that happens, our air quality could be going down, especially for those more sensitive groups. You are encouraged to limit your outdoor activities, especially on Saturday. So we could be dealing with a deterioration in our air quality into the next couple of days. And of course, we'll continue to keep you posted.
Context of white supremacy. They do not have stormy weather as a problem in Southern California presently. Again, no disrespect to any of the victims and not making light at all. You know, take serious things seriously. I will never hear that song again the same in my life. I told you, just heard the weatherman said, man, we would pray and dance a jig if we could just get a teaspoon of rain. A teaspoon. It ain't rained in 8 weeks. I think that means it hasn't rained since I left Los Angeles. That ain't nothing to brag about. Nothing. But that's what I would expect from the desert. That's what I said. Like, we in the desert in Los Angeles. Like, man. Context of white supremacy. Now, the second part of that segment, that was two different segments broken by, say, Malik, how you make your living. Breathing oxygen. That's everybody, right? That's everybody, right? What's better than breathing? Anyway, they got chief meteorologist in San Diego, Carlene Chavez, lovely black female. That's the chief meteorologist who was telling us about the threats to San Diego air. Now, I'm just going by what's online as someone who does not live in California, but I have been to San Diego and I've been to Los Angeles. I didn't get to San Diego this time recently, but I have been to both. San Diego is 120 miles from Los Angeles. Redondo Beach is 22 miles south of Redondo Beach. Can I give it again? San Diego is 120 miles south of Los Angeles. Redondo Beach is 22 miles south of Los Angeles. You heard the lovely Carlene Chavez giving you CBS 8 San Diego their weather report, where they're talking about concerns for air quality in San Diego because of the wildfires. They are way further away than Redondo Beach. Victims guaranteed qualify. Like I said, if I was in Mexico, I would be concerned. Is that stuff going to trip? Oh my God, yes, get the fire. Andale. We got to go rapidamente. The gringos, they're not going to do right. We're going to have to help them get this out because this is going to drift down here. System of white supremacy, racism. Get your air filters. In fact, investors, Mama C, Double O Dimples, non-Clemson dads said they were fortunate, able to do traveling, and they visited the World Trade Center Museum in New York State, New York City specifically. And they were going through, she said, it was so much information there and material that, you know, you just spend the whole day going through and getting all of, just looking at all of the exhibits and everything that they have. But a big part of that exhibit is exactly what they talked about there, where the first report where they were talking about the air quality problems in LA and said, well, hey, I don't see anything. It's really that not so fast. We got all these green alerts. Everything is fine, right? Not so fast. You don't want this to be something like the World Trade Center where they come and say, oh, my Lord, you got to have a lung transplant. You got the pneumonia. Oh, my God. They got all the fine particles we didn't know about and all the rest of it, the asbestos that was in the smoke. And, oh, my goodness. Come on. Come on. They got the gas masks and air filters and such that some of the first responders at the World Trade Center had from 2001. And they were saying that, hey, it's fine, it's no problem, the air is fine, it is not a health risk, and then come to find, and in fact, a whole lot of them, they didn't even get to do that. They died. I'm not saying you're going to die from breathing in, but I mean, hey, they got report. I shared some of them. I, tried to do my diligence and share, again, with the backdrop being one, I was just here. And then, too, it's a lot of non-white people, victims of white supremacy in this part of the world who were greatly impacted by all this. And they just had that report talking about when they have natural disasters like this, floods, hurricanes, whatever it is. You just saw that in North Carolina. Black people, non-white people, they are really going to be abused, mistreated, not going to get the help that they should get, compared to people that are classified as white. And we spent all that time reading about Hurricane Katrina, so I mean, we have some experience with so-called disasters, man-made or natural, and what happens to the victims of white supremacy in these sorts of events. If we have folks in the California area, if you have thoughts, observations, I reckon we'll get a thought in. It's two reports. It was two, I forgot. Let's see. Go back in because there was a report in the LA Times today talking about the air quality, and then there was there's one. LA Times today, what threats lurk in the smoke and ash of LA area fires? And they had ash warnings in the Los Angeles area today as well. I'd never even seen that before. Ash, or like a volcano had erupted or something. But from that report in the LA Times today, as wildfires have become more common, researchers have been learning that wildfire smoke, depending on what it consists of, can be even more dangerous to the public health than other types of air pollution. Air pollutants from wildfires are dangerous to the immediate fire zone and surrounding communities, but the harm can reach out further. Lamb noted that during the 2018 Camp Fire in Butte County, researchers found smoke with lead in it 150 miles away from the fire zone. Now, I just told you San Diego, we can poo on Redondo Beach, that doesn't even matter. So San Diego is 120 miles away. They said they found residue from the fire smoke 150 miles from the fire zone. That's in the LA Times today. I said if I was in Mexico, I would be concerned about this stuff drifting down there. Victims guaranteed qualified. I said two reports, so let me get the second report, see if folks, oh, there we go. Okay, so now this was published in November of 2024. So this is 2 months ahead of time. The report, Wildfire Smoke Exposure and Incident Dementia. Host of doctors published this report. Journal of American Medical Association long-term exposure to wildfire and non-wildfire fine particulate matter was associated with dementia diagnosis, with stronger associations observed in potentially vulnerable subgroups. When I read that, I said, I wonder who the vulnerable subgroups are. Wildfire smoke exposure and incident dementia, published in November of 2024, may be more applicable or relevant now given what's happened to kick off 2025. What is more important than breathing? Facts. Anyway, again, it's so much to study. I learned about the firefighters. I even minimized that because I had that at the beginning, but they were talking about that on Democracy Now! And some of the other outlets, that they have firefighters making up a significant percentage of the firefighters that are out there doing all this work. When they talk about the first responders, it's a substantial number of non-white convicts, prisoners, who are out there on the front lines with these fire hoses, battling these blazes and such. Now, they talked to some of them, and they said that you get better food, the program is voluntary, and all that. Delectable Negro. The only way I can get, something better, the extra piece of cornbread, biscuit, whatever it is, I got to go out and put my life on the line and battle these blazes and such that are killing people and burning down acres at a time and such. That's the only way that I can get better food. Maybe get a job. Now, hey, if you need firefighters, we're going to have these blazes on a regular basis. We're going to have now 12-month wildfire season. If that is the case, we talked about this before. Maybe you could pipeline Leroy, Lakeisha, the rest of the non-white people in this area, as opposed to having them piling up in prisons and what have you, being like Tukey Williams. Maybe you could train them from the beginning and have them be just regular employed firefighters where they make all the money. They said that's a pretty good job. If you can get it, you can make $100,000 a year, benefits, dental, all that good stuff. Then if you die, hey, we got pension, life insurance plan, all that good stuff, family taken care of. Hey, why don't you do it that way? You'd rather get me incarcerated and then get me on the cheap and go out there and risk my life to fight these battles and such, houses I'll never own. They wouldn't even let me come and do landscaping. But get old convict Leroy and get out here and put the fire down every other month. Come on now. That would be another thing to think about now. How cool is California? They have convict labor in lots of places, but I mean like for real. So how cool of a place is California? I know Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, and the Lakers and all that. Yeah. Denzel Washington, we got all that. Yeah. How cool is California? Juju Watkins, right? USC, fight on. Orenthal James. How cool is California? LAPD can take a way back seat. We can forget all about Mark Furman to a degree, like I said, because they do, when they have these sort of conflagrations, they do call out the police to regulate who can access the neighborhood. So it might be Mark Furman and his cousin. Now, you know you don't own no property here. Back down. Back down. Or private police. They could hire Mark Furman as private security to come and patrol the neighborhood right now, a la George Zimmerman. How cool is California? I even got to be saying, I should have been saying how cool is LA, but that white man didn't say that. That white man said, we got to get serious and solve these problems or California is not going to be habitable. He didn't say LA. He said California, like all of it. I love California, the non-LA part. I love California. Like, what? Like, what do you mean? You're not habitable. Like, whoa. That is crazy. But I mean, hey, that fella, I told Paul Kramos on Democracy, and I said, I dipped. This is what it's going to be. And getting worse, he said, really, to be truthful about it, it's just going to get worse. Now, we can pay attention to that. Hey, let's study. Let's pay attention. Now, we've seen all this. We paid attention. Let's watch. The Olympics is looming, right? 2028. Does this happen again between now and the Olympics? How many times does this happen again between now and the Olympics? That would be something to monitor, pay attention to. What does the rebuilding process look like? Do we have the same sort of massive displacement of black people that they did with Hurricane Katrina, where you have a lot of black people who lost property, houses, school, jobs, whatever it is? And, you know, I used to live in Southern California, and now I live in Iowa or Utah, Louisiana, you know, wherever, Illinois. Might not be such a bad thing. I don't know. I'm just saying, you know, that is not the way you wanted to move or where you wanted to move. That is not quite the circumstances of your deuces to LA. That's not like Elon Musk doing the deuces, we're going to Texas. What is it, GTT? That is very different circumstances. Any hoodles. We're still doing the book club tomorrow. Dr. Maya Angelou. Installment number 4, The Heart of a Woman, which is tangentially related to California, because that's where that book starts off at, California, even though now she has hopped across the continent to New York, and then is about to hop across the pond to the continent. But more of that to come with Dr. Angelou's work. I think she'll even be migrating back to the States and even California eventually, but that is down the road. But that's tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, the Catherine Massey Book Club, which led us to old California to begin with Jonestown. Wacky. Let's see. Folks, if we have any California folks, I don't know if we have any Southern California folks who have been watching, paying attention to all this, trying to buy air filters or such. But *61 if you have thoughts, observations to add. If not, we will wrap up and be ready for the book club on Thursday, Neutralizing Workplace Racism on Friday. Even the fires and Neutralizing Workplace Racism, because they had a number of non-white people, they didn't lose their house, but their job, the place where they worked at, either closed, burned, damaged, whatever the case may be. So they still ended up being problems, and I suspect for some people, they didn't lose their house, they didn't lose their job, but especially if they're in LA closer to the fire, having to come outside, that might be the hazard. You got to be out there and breathing all of this in over the past, I guess it's been a week now, and I'm very sure, just like with COVID-19 and frontline workers, essential workers, they're going to have a lot of those folks are non-white people who would be required. They can't keep their footies on and pajamas and just be inside and go on Amazon and, you know, find the best HEPA filter and, you know, stay in my closed, locked room, my mask on all day long and work on my computer. It's going to be lots of non-white people. Got to get out there, mask or no, get out there and, you know, trim those hedges and all the rest of it. Do whatever outdoor activities are going to have to be conducted even in the midst of all of this. Which has got to be catastrophic. I think they've even got studies where they were talking about just the normal smog and what have you that they haven't. In fact, they were saying that these wildfires, that they had made some progress allegedly with these wildfires because they've had reduced emissions, you got to do better with your vehicle and all the rest of it, that they have allegedly made some progress, that these wildfires, because they're happening so frequently now, that is erasing some of the progress that had been made with regards to reducing emissions and doing better about the smog. So all of that is, you know, super important in my view to process, especially if you live in California. Even if you live close to California, I would think all of that is going to be impacting you, even if it's an influx of people who are displaced because of the wildfires and they're coming into, let's say, Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, coming into these areas for housing and what have you, even if it's on a temporary basis or long term or whatever, just for respite. Man, I mean, I would be paying attention to what's happening with all this, and particularly the impact on black people. As I said, they got whole black neighborhoods up in some of these areas, and if there are 500,000 children who had their school routine disrupted over the past few days because of all this, you can be guaranteed that that is a lot of black children, a lot of non-white children who are going through all kinds of trauma. And I mean, Not to mention everything that they're breathing while they're sitting at home wondering, when are we going back to school, and all the rest of it. Is our house going to burn down? Is school going to burn down? And, whatever else. I would, be monitoring. If you are in the California area, take it seriously. Hopefully that's been reflected in the broadcast. Dr. Campbell is being serious about things that are serious. This is super duper serious. And like I said, that was my impression way before all of this. Los Angeles, Southern California is a dangerous, unhealthy, unsafe environment. The whole planet is unsafe, but particularly escalated threat risk level for a variety of reasons. That was my assessment way before all of this, and then whammo, I would have felt, negligent in some type of way if all this had happened and I had not had some sort of reflection or remembrance, like, oh dang, then you were complaining, you thought it was hard to breathe, and all the rest of it. So I was paying attention. I guess I went where I was supposed to go in Malibu and Santa Monica and some of these other, UCLA. I guess I was where I was supposed to be. Hollywood, saw what I was supposed to see, made my report. The LA component, I did not get to the film festival aspect of it, some of which did include climate change, but, for another time. We'll at least be able to talk about Soundtrack to Coup d'etat tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, if we have listeners in the California area, hope folks are safe. Attempted family. We do not qualify victims of white supremacy as man, woman, or even family. Neighborhood, we do not qualify. But hope folks, non-white people, are as safe as can be. Staying in touch with other folks if you're in the California area, and staying informed, because it seems like a lot of this is rapidly developing. Do you have an evacuation order? Do you not? And have they got containment and all the other? Just, man, do your best to stay informed, and do your best if you have non-white children to just be honest with them, keep them calm and subdued, but also being truthful, and even using this as an opportunity, teaching moment about white supremacy, racism. You can show them Octavia's bookshelf. They should know who Octavia Butler is, California legend, right? And the historically black so-called neighborhood in Los Angeles, because like I said, I didn't even know that this was there as a part of Altadena. I don't know if I'd have made it up there if I'd known about that when I was down there, but even still, that should be something, especially if you live in California, like, oh man, research, and Mama D, and oh wow, and Mr. Hendrickson, research, and know a little bit about these folks. You can do that on the line. It's Rodney Nickerson. I think I said Hendrickson. Rodney Nickerson. Mama D, Dowsey Curry. Research, learn a little bit of information, read some of the articles and what have you, obituaries. They give more details about their life and how they experienced racism, white supremacy in Southern California, how they ended up being in those neighborhoods to begin with. Read some of those reports. Maybe you can go back and read some of the archive reports about the history of what's happened in that area and to some of the black residential spots in that area, even maybe how they've been fighting off racial dislocation for decades up there. Fight will certainly continue and intensify now. Double check, see if folks, any comments to share what's transpired with all this. They're satisfied. We'll certainly have further opportunities to chat about this on the compensatory call-in this coming weekend, Saturday, normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Assume folks are good. Hope folks are, no place is safe, no sanctuary, but, hope folks in the area at least have great air filters, can stay inside as much as possible. Residence is safe, and maybe you have a really accommodating work setup where they are not mandating your presence. You can get some days you can chill, be in the residence and just watch the news and take care of the family, make pancakes, whatever, and just take it easy and hope things calm down over the next few days or so. Any hoodles. We will be back. Much obliged for folks tuned in. Hopefully worthy of your time and energy. Sobriety would be best. They got the legalized wacky tobacco in California. I do not think that is helpful during the midst of all of this. I could be in error. Certainly, I would not want to be intoxicated when you get the alert that you got to evacuate, and then you got to, and I mean literally, some people said that they had 20 minutes, looked outside, uh-oh, the backyard is on fire, we got 20 minutes to get out of here and save our life. I do not think having 3-4 sips of the cognac and then you got to go and pack to save your life, I do not think that is the best way to do it. I think you might want to be sober if you're going to have to evacuate, flee the burning embers that might burn you down and then have smoke inhalation to take your life. I think you might want to be sober so you can make the best possible decisions in that scenario. Just saying. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. No name calling, no gossiping, no throwaway offspring. Thoughts and prayers to Los Angeles, Greater LA area. What is better than breathing? Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.